Blasphemous is a horror medieval themed Metroidvania with very strong imagery that was released back in 2019. With Blasphemous 2 coming out on the 24th of August, let's have a look at the first Blasphemous game to see is it a Metroidvania worth playing or not. Just before I start this video, the game features a lot of uncomfortable content such as gore and nudity. There will be gameplay footage that will feature some of those gory aspects of the game, so viewers be advised. Blasphemous is a 2D pixel art Metroidvania that features some of the most beautiful pixel art graphics I've ever seen. From the characters, the enemies, background scenery, and even cutscenes. A lot of the times when I'm playing the game, controlling the main character who is known as the Penitent One, I'm just left dumbfounded on how amazing the background details are. This combined with the strong religious symbols really conveys a story of emotions to the players as they delve deeper into the game. One such example is this dreamlike place. While it is minimal, with how barren the land is, it really sends a strong feeling that you are alone in this holy land. Another example I can give is the area when you start the game. Forget about the pile of dead bodies laying there that forms a mountain. Further behind on the background, there is a giant figure strapped onto a wood, almost as if the figure was condemned for their sins. Throughout the game, rarely would you find any moment where the background doesn't give you some kind of mixed emotion. Then there are set pieces that are just as powerful, if not more. A lot of the times when I see these landmarks in an area, it really makes me wonder, what secret does this place hold? What is the lore behind it? The game also have one-of-a-kind scenery, where it's a medieval gothic theme. Imagine Castlevania, but more hardcore. Because unlike Castlevania, this game features a lot of content that is not suitable for younger players, such as the aforementioned gore and nudity. With how detailed and marvelous the sprites look, the developers were able to portray the gore in such a violent manner. And in order to see this violence, you can either kill the enemy, or when prompted, the game will give you an execution command, where sometimes a low health enemy will be stun locked and you can perform something like fatality on them. For the Metroid players watching this, the executions from Metroid Other M. It is such a treat to see these executions as you see the Penitent One performs different execution scenes to various enemies. One such example is that you can see the Penitent One drag the head off of one enemy. On another enemy, the Penitent One steps on the shield that was protecting the enemy to the point that the shield drops on them and completely splattering the enemy underneath. Overall, the game features a large amount of blood. You'll see enemies' guts splashing around, torn limbs spraying blood, perhaps even brain matter hanging out of someone's head. But that's not all. There are some NPCs and enemies who are also nude, with exposed chests, and possibly even a doodle on one of the enemies. I'm not too sure, and I didn't squint long enough to find out. But the exposed sensitive areas are definitely not thirst trapping, as more often than not, these nude images are accompanied with very gruesome scenes, such as multiple swords impaled into the said nude body, while the enemy with the exposed genital is ripped right along the middle from head to waist. So not something I would really want to look at too long. This mentioned enemy though is not an outlier, as more often than not, a lot of the creatures look like something came out of Dark Souls. Dismantled bodily figures that eerily resembles a human, but yet grotesque enough where you know that they are anything but human. This is especially true for the boss designs. Look at this boss called Exposito. It is a horror feud boss baby that is carried by a mummified figure from behind. It looks very innocent, until you see the baby is bleeding from its eyes and chest, where the figure from behind seems to be drawing blood from. Then there is a snake-like figure with a human face that accompanies Exposito. Maybe it is Exposito himself. Exposito himself cannot be targeted, as you can only fight the snake, but with such a significantly disturbing design, you know it packs some power. And it does. Exposito will once in a while perform a one-hit kill move, if you don't move out of the target area fast enough. He will grab the Penitent One and crush him in his hands like a baby who doesn't know his own strength, just wanting to play. If you dodge the very obvious attack though, Exposito will then throw a tantrum like an actual baby, not getting what it wants. Even though I lost to this boss so many times because the snake had such an unpredictable movement that it caused cheap death, it is such a treat to replay due to the boss design, and this is true for the most bosses, except for this guy, Estras. Screw this guy and his cheap pattern. Now this brings me to the combat of this game, which is the main focus of this game from what I can see. There are giant Mea Culpa shrines that will grant the Penitent One new skills to enhance his combat capabilities. You have a skill tree that gives him different combo finishes, a pathway that boosts his charged attack, and a pathway that enhances dodge attack. Then you also have prayers, which is the magic in this game that drains the Verva bar, otherwise known as mana for most other games. Prayers feature some of the most powerful and versatile spells that makes it extremely useful in combat. Finally, there are rosary beads, which enhance your stats in some way or make you resistant to something. So quite clearly, there is an emphasis on combat in this game, but what I find extremely weird is that even though the game places such a huge emphasis on combat, it offers so little for combat options. Aerial combat is practically non-existent, as you can only do a basic sword swing in the air. Your dodge attack and charge attack offers no customization, and your combo finishes, that deviates from the main path, more often than not, locks you in an animation that makes you too vulnerable to make the payoff to be worth using. Doesn't mean that there is no use, but most of the time, I don't see the point. There is no option for knockdown recovery either, or at least I didn't acquire anything like that. The closest thing to it is a rosary bead that increases your recovery time slightly, but I honestly don't notice much difference. This is especially annoying because it seems like the game has some true combos that you absolutely cannot avoid if you get hit by the first attack. This brings me back to Esdras and his cheap combos. All his attacks are fast and snappy, so you'd parry at the perfect moment as soon as you see a little change to his animation. But not this one attack, because this one attack actually have a delay. What he does is that he charges up on the spot, and then he swings his weapon. So at this point, you've been conditioned to parry as early as possible, because all his other attacks are fast. But because of how slow the charge is, you won't be able to parry this one, because your parry ends as soon as he does the attack, and this one hits like a truck. It does so much damage. Once you get sent flying and knocked to the ground, you slowly get up, which makes you immediately eat the next attack, which is the chain of lightning that was caused by Esdras by his first swing. Honestly, he was the most infuriating boss in the whole game, and there is no cool boss design to look at while fighting this guy. But other than that, I can say all the bosses were fun, one way or another, be it the battle itself or how unique and cool the boss looks like. So yes, when the combat works, it works great. When you parry an enemy attack perfectly, you feel powerful, but some enemies' attacks are so strong and heavy, it'll push you back instead, which is still fine as they are now open to attacks due to their slow recovery time. But that's enough with the combat for now, and let's look at the platforming and the world traversal of the game. Unfortunately, I do think that this is the weaker side of Blasphemous when it comes to platforming sections, which links to the world traversal. You're presented with all the options on how fast you can get around at the very beginning of the game. Your dodge will very likely be your main tool to get around fast, and that's it. You can also wall climb and ledge cling on certain areas, but there is no other way to get around faster or easier with some advanced maneuvers. So this means that traveling around the world doesn't have much options either. A long tradition of Metroidvania is to get new techniques that will unlock older areas. Blasphemous doesn't have any of that. Instead, all you can do is find the intended way to get to the destination, and then find the lever that will open the gate, so next time when you come back here, you have another way to get to the location. There are also certain equipable items known as relics that lets you access areas that you once cannot, but these relics don't really open up anything new at all. All it really does is either make you immune to poison in the air, or make platforms visible in certain areas. Keyword is make them visible. You don't make platforms at all. You can't spawn these platforms anywhere you want. It only spawns at designated locations where you can see indicators of red embers in the place. This by virtue almost made the map boring to explore if it weren't for the amazing location and set pieces littered all over the place. Finally, we have the story and the lore. The story follows the penitent one and his quest to seek redemption. He was brought back by the god of Custodia, known as the Miracle, to repent for his sins. It's a very symbolic journey, and though it is very hard to comprehend at first, as they speak in an old English language, using very big words, there is a certain appeal to it that draws you in regardless with its intriguing dialogues. The game has 3 endings, and though I've only achieved one of them, being the bad ending, I am tempted to unlock the other endings as well due to how well crafted the world is. So, is Blasphemous worth playing after all of this? I think it is, and while the game is weak on the platforming and world traversal, the combat more than makes up for its weakness. I know, I might sound like I didn't like the combat, as it felt a bit too limited in customization, but what they have in place works really well. Do I want to see it get expanded further? Yes, I certainly would like to, but at the moment, it's not. But perhaps Blasphemous 2 will fix that, as the new trailer looks really awesome with the new weapons and aerial combat. And to top it all off, the niche of the game, which is the violent gore and the gothic Catholic theme, makes this game worth to at least try it out.